In today's video, we're going to be working on a 2000 Nissan Altima. We're going to be replacing the power window regulator and the window switch in the door. So let's get into it. Tools needed for this project will be a basic 5-piece screwdriver set, a 1/4-inch drive ratchet socket set, a plastic automotive trim tool set, suction cup, blue masking tape, or both, nitrile gloves, and possibly adhesive remover.
The 98 to 2001 Altimas are renowned for the window regulators to go bad, plus the switches in the door. So not only are we going to be changing the regulator out, we're going to be changing the door switch out as well, and I'll go over both procedures in this video. So let's just dive in. These Altimas from 98 to 2001 are renowned for having bad window regulators because they have part of the components in it that does the auto for when you push the button down, and then again this switch also is part of it. And these switches are just, I don't know what it is, no matter if you buy the dealer ones or get one out of a junkyard or buy an aftermarket, they seem to all go bad. So this window, and I try to get it to demonstrate it for this video, but it'll sometimes go down, sometimes it won't come up at all, and you just need to flip the switch. So we're going to replace it. Remove this, so the door panel can kick up to come off. We're going to have to remove this escutcheon right here, this little bezel. And this one, these little bezels, these escutcheons, what are you going to call them? They got a hook here, 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 and here, and you have to be careful or you'll snap them. I've been using eManualOnline. They're an online manual that shows you different breakdowns of components. So it shows how the window regulator is bolted in, shows how the door panel comes apart, and I'll be using it for this particular job because, like I said, it does give you the little tips on being careful. We're first going to start by removing this little cover for the Phillips screw, and there's one down in here if I get the sunlight right. Just going to use a little screwdriver to pop little covers off. Now I've removed the little covers from the screws, so we're going to use a Phillips screwdriver and get the screws out.
Just a quick note, I did not try to pull the switch panel out of the door panel like some places show, because after age, when you put a screwdriver or anything up in there to pry it out, if that tab doesn't let it go, you'll snap that bezel plastic. So I would not recommend doing it that way.
And it takes out the whole little cup. I like to use plastic trim tools so that way it doesn't hurt the interior. You just have to be very careful with this. Just as a tip, this kind of catches on like that. In other words, push it forward, and then you push everything into snap in. So you kind of got to get the snaps, these little catches. Got to get them broke free, and you have to be very careful because these things always break. Now I'm going to use this to go around the door panel to free it up. All we're going to do is just pop it free. I usually just try to find a place. There you go. That connector that goes into the switch, that's what you got to disconnect in order to be able to get the door panel away. I'm not sure you're gonna be able to see me get my hand in there. There's a squeeze on that clip that you gotta get to release the wires. The squeeze is in the bottom, so you have to push it from here to get it to come out. Then we're going to take it back up in order to move the window around to where we need it. You're going to pull this bracket off, and it's 10mm bolts. You don't have to remove the speaker or anything like that, and we don't really have to drop all this plastic either. My opinion, it's best to do this when it's a little cooler or you're in the shade, because this stuff, it just strings and gets all over everything. You don't want to get it in your components that make everything work if you can help it. You definitely don't want to get it off your door handle, and it's being messy around that part. You don't want to get it on you. Like I said, I'm going to try to just peel it back as what I need to do to get the job done and not take it all the way off, if that's possible. Okay, so what they did is they gave us a little window here, 2 little holes to catch that regulator. So that's going to make it really fun. We'll have to take this plate off because this is going to be our opening to get the mechanism out with. Also, you notice like here, this is a clip that actually fits in the door panel. It come out of the door panel instead of off the door, so we'll have to either replace it or snap it back in if possible. Because if you don't at least pull it out of the way, if you don't, it's going to make it hard for the door panel to go on and it's going to stay popped out on you. We're going to need suction cups and tape, or at least tape, because the glass can, once we disconnect it from the regulator, it's just going to try to drop down the door. If you try to raise it up, it can fall out. So we're going to need to hold it in place, have somebody else hold it while you're doing the work, or remove the glass. Whatever one you want to, whatever you feel comfortable with.
You can just use the switch out of the door panel, just remove it from the door panel, which you'll see at the end of the section, and just use the switch connected to the wiring harness to make it a lot easier instead of having to mess with the whole door panel. I don't know why I didn't do that, but that's a whole lot easier step just to have the switch free in hand.
Sadly, I went too low. This was stupid. They should have put an opening in here so that you had a range where you don't have to get it exact. Because especially like I said, if the motor doesn't work anymore, you're going to have to get in here, because the motor itself, these are the bolts here that hold the motor on. We're going to have to disconnect these 3 bolts too to get the motor loose. Then we're going to have these 2 bolts here and these 2 bolts here to release the actual regulator track. The electric motor's got little tabs on it that holds it into the door. Just kind of holds it in place. It makes it easier to get it into place when you're reinstalling it. And this, they've actually made the hole big so that way you can leave, when you go to install the new track, you'll put the bolt in the left hand side of it looking at it, facing you, and you put it up there, leave it stuck out some, you put it through this little hole and catch it so it kind of holds it in place to help you get started. Like I said, these are the ones that actually loosen the bolts holding the track to the glass. We're going to take one, go ahead and take one out. Really. Oh, we got to disconnect the wire to the motor. It's just a little catch clip. And the wire is clipped. It's got a little snap clip into the door. Be sure to look down in the description for all the tools I've used. If you see anything you don't have and you might find handy. This is a trim clip tool that helps remove these things without breaking them apart too bad. Because if I had to reuse it, I can plug it back in. It's just a handy little trim tool for removing snap clips and things. And there's the old one. Before installing the new one, I went ahead and put some white lithium grease on the tracks, so that'll help it keep lubed for a long time so it doesn't get stuck and tight like this one had gotten. And reverse procedure. As I mentioned, just put a bolt in just so far, and this should, the replacement didn't come with clips. That kind of sucks. It didn't come with little hooks to hook through the holes here. Some do, some don't. It's something you got to look for. Just do this hole. Now that's hung. It wouldn't be so bad if you didn't have this goo everywhere to get on you. I'm probably the only mechanic that hates to get dirty. You just got to move it around till you find your bolt holes. Now the drawback is they made the wire harness a little too short. It comes out of the top, but it's not quite long enough. I mean, it'll work, but it's got to be stretched a little bit to fit in that little snap. But it'll still work. It's just, in my opinion, too short. So I'm gonna have to put some sort of, I'm gonna have to tape it and put something on it to keep this from cutting into the wires, because over time, being stretched, pulled against this bare hole, it'll cut into the wires and short it out. But your other crucial thing is get a hold of the wire since I've run to the front, or if you don't see it in the front, move it around. Just make sure the wire is not pinched with the motor pushed up, tightened up against the door frame. And you want to keep your towel hand and keep your hands clean, because when you go back to touching the door panel and stuff, you don't want to ruin it with the grease and this black goo that you might get on you. And this black goo can be taken off with a carburetor cleaner. I usually use lacquer thinner, but not everybody keeps lacquer thinner handy, or enamel reducer, one of the two, to remove it. Also a tip, go ahead and lube some of your connections in here, for like your door handle, anything that slides and moves. While you got the door panel open, it's a good time to spray things in there and get it. When you use tape on these, don't use just regular masking tape if you can avoid it, because especially if you're in the sunlight, it will bake on and it's hard to get off afterwards. Always thread it by hand to ensure you're really threading into what you think you are. If you go using air tools or electric tools and you're wrong, it's stripped out and messed up for good. Now I'm going to put some tape or whatever I need to put over this to protect it so it doesn't get messed up. Make sure it still can reach. And I'm going to wrap it many times. Now, before we go any further and put it all back together, let's put the door panel up there, connect it up, and make sure the window rolls up and down. Just because it's new doesn't mean it's going to work. I have run across that many times. Plus, you want to make sure you got everything in track. So moving this lever, keep it on there, because this whole mechanism will pop out if you push it. So I'm just wanting to see what's moving. So I'm seeing what's moving. So we need to put a little lube here. And it's just white lithium grease. It doesn't need to be hosed down where it's just dripping with it, goo. It looks like it's too hard to get to the actual door mechanics unless you pull it all out, but you can always, while you got your spray out, spray in here, and that'll help the catch. My travel's a little bit further than I thought, so I'm going to spray that rod. All right. Make sure any wires that you have that stick through the plastic are stuck through. Yeah, that window regulator was a kit, so it comes with a new switch. Anytime you pull this door panel off, I highly recommend replacing the switch. You can get them for anywhere from $20 to $40, depending on where you get it from. They're just renowned for going bad. I don't know what goes bad in them necessarily, but you can see that they screw on, and you could sit there and probably screw with trying to get these screws off. thing, but all you have to do is just push this tab in, and that pushes the panel out. Okay, now that it's out, because it's just the whole piece, and it'll snap back in real easy, easier than it was getting out, to be honest with you, but this is just much easier to do it this way. Actually, if you're going to do it on a rough surface, I'd recommend using a towel to keep from scratching that bezel on the outside. Put it back in the way it came out. Make sure everything lines up too, where it looks like you're going to be able to get to the buttons. Just hold it by hand if you need to. Make sure it's seated flat against it, so that way if it's not and you're screwing it down, it'll bust it or strip these threads out. I would recommend putting all 4 screws in before you tighten any of them down. Okay, everything seems to be working. Switches are not restricted, so it means it was a good fit. You always have to go back and test aftermarket stuff these days because you never know. The pin has kind of a catch. You just there. Snap it in and it's done. Okay, now we're ready to reassemble. I replaced that one clip. I had a box full of them that I've taken from cars. This stuff just doesn't like to stay stuck. It wants to be gooey, but it won't stay stuck. But now it's just reverse order. Just put everything back together the way it was. This time ensure that when you're putting your wire connector in that it's really snapped in good. You don't want that coming loose on you. Sometimes it helps to roll the window down. Some do, some don't. Because you want to make sure you got your hole lined up. There's a little foam around there. So you want to ensure that it goes back around that opening. This says outside. So, in other words, so it says power window, door window, in other words, to that side. So, put it in so the angle's right and the screw lines up. Okay, after tightening the bolts down, don't forget to put your little plugs in your holes. Okay, now this is going to be, it's not real hard, it's just you got to be real careful. Like I said, these things split taking them off and also putting them on. As I mentioned, it's got a catch. On this end you can see the little catch. So just so you remember, because if you don't know, because it looks like it'll go either way, but you want the catch. Kind of push it in, pull, and then it's locked. Then don't force it. It could got a hold of a little. No. All right, it's flush. But sometimes they'll get a hold of some of the fabric around there in those little tabs that keep locking in. But that's it. Make sure your other windows work. Make sure your door locks work. Of course, that just locks out the back glass. You can push it, and there you have it. So I hope you found this video helpful. Any tools or anything that I've used in this video, I'll put down in the description. So anytime that you see my videos, please look down in the description. All the links, everything that I've discussed is down in there. So, and if you do have any questions, you can contact me through my website, rodshop.org, or leave me comments here. If you want to share pictures and stuff, you can use my website to contact me and upload pictures, whatever you want me to look at. And don't worry, I'm not going to use your email address to spam you. It's just a lot easier to communicate with you through that than it is to be able to do through comments. But anyhow, if you did like the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and always check back because I'm always working on something crazy. See you in the next one.